What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Pretty Dece Director's Cut. This is episode 2. I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek, your host, and joining me are my usual cohorts for this show. We've got Scott. What's up, Scott?
Hello, hello.
And Ross is here. What's up, Ross?
Hello.
Gentlemen, how is it going? How's life been since last we have spoke?
Things are good.
Good.
Life is just trucking right along.
Life is trucking. The world is trucking. We haven't exploded since the last time we had one of these shows, so that's good.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, I feel like bare minimum, like we can be proud that hasn't happened. Society hasn't collapsed. Everything is still humming along. That's all we can hope for.
Some pillars are still hanging in there.
We're not yet actually living a dystopian video game.
No, we're still heading there. Like we can still see the lines.
This is the prequel. This is the cutscene, the flashback cutscene,
right?
In the dystopian game.
This is where like all of the exactly in the flashback. It's like, ooh man, I see
the
where
signs
I
we
see
should have seen.
Exactly. I see that's gonna go real bad here in a bit. That's where we currently are. Until
Should we be
then,
worried about that? Nah, we're good, right?
Nah, we're good.
Yeah.
We're fine.
Until then, we've got video games, we've got comic books, we've got movies, we've got all these fun things we're going to talk about here today. Of course, this is the show where we kind of have a long-form discussion, unlike the regular Pretty Dece episodes, where we can spend way too long talking about ridiculous things that we want to talk about. That's the whole point here. So, gentlemen, let's jump right into things. Since we had the last episode, I've been thinking about media I've been consuming. And I realized that, like, I'm getting maybe more into competitive gaming, like, just in general. Because there's been several things that have been happening. So, first of all, EVO, the lineup for EVO 2018 got announced. And I was definitely interested in that lineup. Like, there were games that I want to see played and stuff, and I'm, like, more excited for EVO than normal this year. Like, every year when EVO comes up, and if you guys don't know, EVO is the biggest, like, fighting game tournament that happens every year. A bunch of different games get featured, a bunch of different winners in each of those different games, and, like, the games that make it on the main stage are always a big deal. And the tournament as a whole is, like, really big. It happens in, like, Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and there's this huge stage, and it's, like, kind of the biggest thing in fighting games every year. So every year coming up, that's always super interesting from kind of an outsider's perspective. Like, oh, that's crazy. Like, there are that many people, into fighting games, and they can put on this big, giant tournament. But I was definitely way more interested this year because I've played most of the games that are going to be in the lineup, and I definitely like them, and I feel like I'm having this sort of fighting game resurgence right now. So that's the first thing that happened. And the other thing that's kind of opened my eyes a bit to, like, competitive gaming in general is the Overwatch League, which has started. And actually just completed stage 1. There's, like, 4 different stages and yada yada. So, like, stage 1 ended, so which is, like, the first sort of quarter of their season. And that has just been, like, ridiculous production values and really, really smart stuff in terms of, like, regional-based teams, even if the players aren't necessarily regional. And, like, I've liked watching that a little bit, which I didn't think that I would actually care to do whatsoever. So that's also been a little surprising me. So, yeah, I guess I wanted to talk in general sort of about kind of competitive gaming, if you guys were into that, if that's anything you've delved in at all, or kind of where you see, like, that being at here in 2018. So, big talk.
Traditionally I have not been the biggest competitive gamer. I've certainly watched some, and with the Overwatch League coming out now, I think that's been an interesting story that's come out. I think, unfortunately for me, the thing that I've kind of glommed onto about the Overwatch League is Kotaku did an article early January, just when things were starting to get going, about the lack of female players.
Yes.
That there aren't any.
I think there's like one now, maybe, or going to be one.
Yeah, have they changed? So I wasn't sure, and I think the thing that stuck out for me throughout that piece was just the really terrible answers that were coming from, like, the reasonings behind why there aren't any women on any of these teams. I thought was pretty, it was just very, just terrible carbon copy. Well, we don't want to hurt the team dynamics, and the cohesiveness, and everyone lives together, and how would the living, it was just these really bad trope.
Wait, the teams live together?
Yeah, like professional teams, they'll rent a house, or they'll their sponsors will kind of help them to essentially practice for however many hours a day, hours and hours and hours, and that, so they have this living arrangement all together. Is that usually how?
Yeah, so
it seems like that's how it's worked.
And this one especially. So a lot of, I think, like, competitive gaming teams, like, they'll like practice over the internet and all that stuff, and it'll be a lot of like, you're in your house and I'm in mine, and we're, hundreds of miles away. But in this especially, so they do all of the matches in California. There's a studio they have. And yeah, I think all the teams are basically just like living out there, living together, practicing all the time. So it's like, it is very much, I guess, like real world Overwatch is what it maybe kind of sounds like.
Yeah, I did not read that part of the description. I was like, oh, there's a league and they're going to play, and I didn't really understand that they were doing an MTV reality show on the back end. Well,
they're not. Yeah, they're at most doing like sort of like pieces on like, hey, let's find out who this person is, but that's very, very minor. But like in real life, they are all in person, so they can show up at this studio, several times a week or whatever, and play. So by kind of necessity, they are living together.
I think, sorry, I don't mean to drag the conversation too far away, but I think that maybe it's good that the topic came up so quickly after the start of the season, and that it's being talked about, I think is a positive. But yeah, as far as competitive gaming overall, just to be asked about our experience and opinions, and I've dabbled. I keep coming back like here and there. I certainly play Crucible and Destiny. I tried For Honor when it came out, and I just wish I just don't have the thumb skill. I don't have the acumen or the hours and hours of drive it would take to get good, as the kids say. But I do enjoy watching it.
I think that's maybe the thing that I finally got over, because for a while it was like, I don't care about super competitive gaming because I know that I'll never get there. I'll know that I'll never like be at that point. And I think I got over that hurdle of like, okay, that's how like real sports fans watch sports. Like they know they're never going to be able to do it, but they can like watch it and admire it and appreciate it because they go maybe play like pickup basketball or whatever. It's like I can play Overwatch really terribly, but then I can see like the skill level and admire the skill level, which it was hard for me at first because it was like I felt so much more connected than like watching a basketball player on TV, because it was like, this is a thing I do. I game. Like, I don't care about, someone who can do it better. But anyway, on the thing about women, I think that's interesting that you bring that up. And, obviously we're three dudes talking about women being represented in things. So
yeah.
Like massive grains of salt with everything we say, I'm sure. But
massive.
I think that first of all, it's good that someone pointed that out very early, and I think that it says a good thing about sort of the world that someone did point it out, that like, that we didn't just take it for granted, that like, oh yeah, of course there aren't any women in the Overwatch League. Don't be stupid. I'm glad that like, at least we're at the point where someone can say like, this is a little strange, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
and the fact that the infrastructure exists within the game already to be like, hey, like, there's a female streamer or video game player, and like she's ranked number 10 in the world. So why is she not playing?
Yeah,
and kicking ass.
Obviously I play a lot of Magic, and there was just an article. I just pulled it up so I could reference her by name because I couldn't remember her name, but Thea Miller, who writes for TCG Player, wrote an article called "Death by 1,000 Paper Cuts." That just came out this past week, which I think is really interesting and paints some really good parallels to this. And because it's the same in Magic. It's the same. Magic is also a competitive game, and there are more women in Magic than you see in like video games, but still, like, it's such a tiny margin. It's ridiculously small. And this article, she kind of like walks down through like a woman showing up at Friday Night Magic for the first time, like, got excited about Magic, playing it on like Magic Duels, showed up in person, and like, it was a good experience at first, but then it's like comments about like, oh, you're here to play Magic, and like, oh, who's your boyfriend, and things like that, right? Like, that's the 1,000 paper cuts of making you feel unwelcome, is like constantly being kind of pushed as an outsider. Like, you don't belong here. This isn't for you. It's a surprise that you're here. I'm more mad that you beat me because you're a girl. All those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So, like, and I'm sure the same is true for Overwatch, for any other competitive game. It's like, it's just such a, like, so many little things that add up to like, yeah, it's probably easier if I just don't participate. It's probably easier if I'm just not even included. Which, that's from the female competitor side. And then, yeah, you also have the, male-dominated teams saying, trash like, we wouldn't want to disrupt the balance. So,
yeah,
it's kind of, yeah, from like both sides, there's, I'm sure, like lots of like, I don't want to be involved, and then I don't want them involved. So, it's definitely a problem. And I hope they really don't, go the route of like, we're going to make a women's Overwatch league, because that's completely missing the point, I think.
Just dumb. Yeah.
Especially for something like this, right? Like, the playing field's pretty even. It's just your thumb skill.
Yeah.
You're good to go. It's not like somebody can physically lift something more or less or anything like that. Like, no. It would be great if in retaliation there would be an all-female team that goes in and wrecks house. That would be really fun to watch.
That'd be awesome.
As far as like, oh, well, since you didn't want to disrupt the dynamic with having, multiple players on the same team, we just made our own. And here we are.
Here we are, and we're just going to be everyone.
It's like, your guys are on the right track to something really cool, and then you go and you just, like, blow it like that? Come on.
Those, the lack of women who might want to, like, participate in a competitive game, I could see then leading to, well, yeah, we have way more male representation on the teams, just by nature of, women not participating because of like all of the nature of the community. But then, to give answers like that is just so tone deaf, Like, it would be so much better if your answer was just like, oh, well, we didn't take gender into account. It was just pure skill level that we were evaluating players on, or whatever. But to give such like a 1950s answer is ridiculous.
I think it stands out a lot too at this point, to where, in the instant information age, that we have this opportunity to get information, to ask these questions, to have articles and to have media question decisions of an organization, is good, but it just feels like the follow-up, the change, to follow, is probably going to take some time. And, the instant Twitter, Instagram-ness of us wants things to be better right now. And it's probably one of those things that's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think maybe part of the reason why I'm getting more into this stuff now is because it's maybe becoming less gross than it used to be, and it, I'm sure it still is, but like, I know, like, hearing about like competitive fighting games and stuff, like in the past 5 or 6 years or so, like there were points where it was just like really, really gross in terms of like like misogynistic, just like idiots that were like participating in that, so and I think especially with fighting games, that was a big thing as it's become more mainstream, is like, oh, it's losing its edge. Like, I've definitely felt that and heard people like talk about that. which is, for the world is a good thing that people are becoming less stupid and more welcoming and open. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a process as that stuff goes.
Because I've not really had any too in-depth experience with fighting games. Like, I remember as I was younger and learning video games, like the fighting game genre was like that or a third-person shooter, right? Like, it's either Mortal Kombat or Contra.
Yeah.
And I was just so terrible at fighting games that I've never really gotten into them. I think the only one that I tried to get good at was the Mortal Kombat Dece crossover.
Yeah. The first one?
One of my roommates had it, and I didn't have to buy it. But I've never quite gotten into fighting games, and so I'm not really well versed on that culture of. It sounds maybe a little bit more meatheadish.
Yeah, I think that it definitely used to be in that for sure. Like it was because I mean, if you think back to like the arcades, right? It was, I walk up to a machine, slam my quarter down, and it means that I'm next. And it was a very like confrontational thing, like way more than other video games where it is a competition. But fighting games always seems like they feel like more of a fight. Like the games themselves have taunts built into them, and there's just like always been showboating, that I've always heard of in the community and stuff. So yeah, I think it's a very like meathead focused thing, in a lot of cases. And I do think that's better. Like it seems like it is better, but I again, like just looking at it like very surface level, not knowing a ton about it. But
you won't see
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you won't see Mortal Kombat fatalities in a third-person single-player only shooter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I love Mortal Kombat, but that's a perfect example of like this is who you're aiming exactly for. You're aiming for 12-year-old boys who think this is cool, right? Like, that's that
was the worst too when you talk about the arcade, like going in there and playing at the arcade, and you play some kid and like the ending, it's one thing when the computer does it, but when someone else is like doing the button combination after the round is over, you've lost, the game is over. But they're good enough that they can actually do all the combos and rip your spine out through your back is pretty it's just the nail in the coffin, the ultimate taunt.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is especially in the arcade, it is the real life version of like teabagging someone after you get a kill in a shooter.
Yeah.
Like it is that just like hammer the point home. I just completely destroyed you. So yeah. It would shock me very little why anyone would not want to participate in that. Yeah. From just a person playing games alone in their house perspective, I think fighting games are super fun lately because they've started incorporating a lot of modes that aren't just direct, like go fight another real person. That was where games were at a long time. It was like there's an arcade mode where you can play like 12 matches and do that over and over again if you want, or you can play online, and like those are the two things. And nowadays, like all the fighting games that are coming out have like really good story modes, or like, Tekken 7 has a mode where, you're just sort of like earning money and you're facing up against like weird random conglomerations of fighters with different like stipulations and stuff on the fights. And then, you're unlocking, cash, and you're unlocking things that your fighters can wear and stuff like that. And there's all this huge customization aspect. And you have games like Injustice, which has this crazy story mode that you can play through that's actually like really, really good and really well done. So I like that. Like they're a fun thing to get good at, even if you're just playing against the bots or whatever. And I like that's the direction they've gone, which is that makes it fun because then it's like, oh, I know these characters, I understand the moves. I understand generally like, oh, this person's a slow character, this person's a fast character, and then I can apply that logic to like two superstars playing the game, right? I know the general mechanics, but now I can watch someone who's actually good at the game do it. I think that's a cool thing.
And I think so. For me to get into a competitive game, like I've watched some Overwatch, but I've never, like, I don't own it, so I don't quite understand everything that's going on. I just enjoy watching people go crazy. But like much in the same way you see things happen on, like if you're watching the NBA and then you try to go and do something like that in a pickup game. I enjoy games that allow the like amateur player to experience some of those hero moments that you see. Like you can watch somebody with a particular build and think like, oh, I want to try that.
Yeah, yeah.
And to see like if it works for you or if it feels good and whatnot. Because in the middle of Destiny's 1's life cycle, I watched a guy that was playing the gunslinger hunter build with throwing knives that would cool down right away, and you got bonus accuracy if you had a hand cannon if you were in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing that and like just jumping around all nimbly bimbly, and the hitbox changes, right? So if you angle somebody from above, the majority of that hitbox is their face. And so you have a higher probability of hitting that cooldown.
Okay.
And I watched somebody do that, and afterwards they explained like what they were doing. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not jumping for necessarily the gun accuracy. It's just that you jump, and then the majority of the hitbox goes from the head being this little thing at the top to the head being the only thing that you can possibly hit. So you automatically get the kill."
Huh. Yeah. See,
oh, that makes sense. I want to try that. And so, but games where it's just you have to be so lightning quick. I remember like watching people play Street Fighter in the arcade when I was super little, and would just like there was no way that I would be able to compete at that level, and I'm now not at all quick enough to compete at that level.
That's actually, pointing out the sort of tutorial aspect of it, where you see something crazy, but then the reason that it sticks with you and you want to go try it and that it's fascinating is because then you have the person who like slows it down and says, well, here's why I'm doing this. Like, here's why it's important. And it's stuff like that I think is maybe what games are getting better at now, or at least, people that are streaming games and playing games. Because, I'm thinking about several like Fortnite streamers, for example, that, you watch them and you've played the game maybe, and you're like, I can kill some people. I understand how guns work and stuff, but you don't understand like the building aspect. And then you watch streamers and they're like building things like crazy and using building defensively, so you can kind of learn from that. But the good ones will also like explain that while they're doing it. Like, you only want to build like, one by one because then you're not wasting resources, or you don't want to build too high because then you'll fall and take fall damage. And like, they'll explain all those things as you go. Weirdly, as complicated as the game is, Dota does a good job of that when they do their international tournament, because they always have a new player stream. So it's a separate stream that's casting the games that's just for new people getting into the games, where they have casters that are explaining things like, oh, they picked this, particular character because of these reasons, or, he's going over here to the map to do these things, and here's why he would do that, and here's how he knew to do that. And he took these items because of these reasons. So yeah, I like that is becoming more and more of a thing now. As games get more complicated and as we are playing games more and more competitively, I like that we are taking the time to explain those things to kind of bring more people into the fold. It's cool.
Or at least I didn't really think about it until like I was watching some competitive shoutcasters and stuff like that, where they would actually do that, where if you grow up playing like basketball or football or something, you kind of already have a sense of how the game works, and then the commentators expand that a little bit more, even if they're really dumb at times, but it's like part of their job is to entertain you. And I think that if this kind of new competitive broadcast medium can think about like the people that would just like stop by because it's on the front page of Twitch or things like that.
Yeah.
Like not like you shouldn't gear the commentary towards the elite person because they already know this. Like, again, break it down for us. Don't treat people like idiots for sure, but just help them get acquainted with the game or why you would even do that.
Right.
So then like they're more likely to try it themselves, or to at least get into it of like, oh, I know what he's doing now. But like, and you caught it before the commentator even thought about it. Like, oh, he's going to build this. Watch. And then like it pays off. And then you can start actually having fun, like watching it with people and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. You bring up football, and like I was just thinking about it here. Like, we've been playing the game that football takes place in our whole lives. It's just called life, right? Like, I understand how to move my character around. I understand how to walk. I've caught a ball before. Like, I get all of the basis for it, and the thing that commentary then can bring to it is like, the extra skill that these people have put into to do those things better than I can do. When I look at a game like Overwatch, and I have never played the game before, I know literally nothing about it. I might not even, like, it could be that, like, you can't jump in the game, or it could be that, like, you die when a monster looks at you. Like, you know, the rules are completely thrown out the window, and I have to start from zero, unlike when I'm looking at something like football or whatever, where it applies, like, real-world physics.
People throwing fireballs.
Right.
Football.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, how did he do that? Oh, yeah, he got a power-up. About
Exactly. So, like, it adds that extra level of, like, there's such a wide berth that you have to bring someone up to where you have no idea where they're starting from. So it, you know, it makes it a real challenge, I think, for that. And
I really hope that maybe the video game world as a collective can take a step forward and not be exclusionary with that. Just like I legitimately tried, and I should have recorded it, tried to play Fortnite, because you loved it so much, and you've been talking about it both on Pretty Dece and then when we've been playing together, and I just got straight up owned.
Yeah.
32 seconds is what my lifetime was. 32 seconds. I dropped in, I didn't know why I was falling out of a plane, I didn't know what was going on. But, like, if you then go and watch it, I hope that people don't take, like, my example and be like, oh, you're such a noob, like, you're just terrible, why would I even try to explain this to you? And, like, try to bring people into the fold of that and maybe be a little bit more inclusive.
Yeah. I think that it's a natural inclination for a lot of gamers to be elitist about things, and it probably just comes from, like, you know, like, I felt like a nerd and an outcast my whole life, and then now this is my thing that I get to make other people feel outcast about, and, you know, I don't know, that might be it, or it might just be people are jerks, but I feel like that happens a lot, of just the, like, noob, didn't know you're gonna fall out of a plane in the middle of Fortnite. But yeah, like, it's something that we need to, as a community, an entire gaming community, need to get over real fast, because it's real dumb. On the Fortnite front, though, Ross,
yes,
Fortnite has a real problem, because there's, as I was telling you, I was texting you, there's like zero tutorial. Like, you drop into.
Why do I have a pickaxe?
Right, exactly. If you know nothing, like, I came into playing Fortnite having watched it streamed a bunch, so there's a streamer named Wavy that I really enjoy, and I found him because he was playing Super Mario Odyssey. He was, like, speedrunning Odyssey. So I was watching that, and then the next time I tuned in to watch him, after I watched him play Mario a few times, he was playing this game Fortnite. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I'll check it out. So I had watched a bunch of Fortnite before even downloading Fortnite for the first time, so I understood sort of the basis of the game because I'd seen him do it. But if you go into Fortnite mostly blind, there's zero tutorial. They don't tell you anything about the game. You get dropped on this sort of, like, staging island, and you have a pickaxe, and a bunch of people have guns, and you have no idea why they're shooting at you, and you don't know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're in a flying bus, and yes, you get thrown out of said flying bus. You're plummeting down towards an island, and then if you manage to make it down to the island, you have people shooting at you, like, almost instantly, like, depending on where you land. And yeah, like, they don't tell you anything about, like, why you have the pickaxe, how to build, anything like that. So, which is a big problem for the game. The reason they tell you nothing is because all of that, like, tutorial stuff is over in the Save the World mode, which you have to pay to get into right now. So it's a real weird thing of just the Battle Royale side is, like, way more popular, tons more people are in it, but it doesn't do any sort of that job of, like, telling you what's going on in the game.
Because I was all excited to be, like, to tell you that I'd actually tried to play it and, like, describe some things that had happened. Nah.
Death.
I parachuted in and immediately died.
So I will say, like, general advice for Fortnite, just to kind of get a bearing on, like, how things work, try to drop. So when you drop out of the plane, you can sort of aim yourself as you're falling. So, like, try to fall towards a place that has nothing going on around it. Like, there aren't any buildings, anything like that. Just fall to a general area, and then start using your pickaxe on some trees, and just anything you see in the world, you can pickaxe down.
Okay.
And then you'll after you collect resources, there's a way to switch over to the building mode. And there are like a few things you can build. You can build like floors, walls, or ramps are like the three main things that you would build. And I would say just like play with building a little bit. If someone comes up on you, you'll definitely die, but at least you should hopefully have a few minutes to like figure out how building and stuff like that works. And then, yeah, after a while, like once you get used to that, start dropping where like a building is or something and start, scavenging it for guns and things like that. And then you can start getting into fights from that point. But it's good to at least take your first few tries just to like get the building mechanics under your belt, because they don't explain those whatsoever and they're very important to the game.
It kind of sets the game apart from like PUBG and stuff like that, I'd heard.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Did a little bit of searching afterwards. I was like, oh, that's why that red wall kept popping up.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Scott, have you played Fortnite at all?
I haven't.
Okay.
It's downloaded, but I've watched a fair amount.
Okay.
But haven't tried it myself.
Yeah, it's, like the general mechanics like are very like, if you know PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you generally know like what Fortnite's going to be about. But yeah, like the building is the big thing that sets it apart. And like the really good streamers will do just insane buildings. Like their fights, like one-on-one, will become these super intense things where they're building ramps and putting walls up and then like building ramps around the walls to try to get around behind somebody, and rockets exploding parts of the things you built and you building new things to fall on so you don't die. And meanwhile, my fights are like, I stood behind a tree and you still managed to kill me, so here we are.
I had been meaning to ask the Save the World mode that you had talked about.
Uh-huh. Is
there a co-op? I can't remember if I'd asked you this already.
There is, yeah, and it works generally pretty well. Because
I've always been a big fan of horde mode type games, and I think I could see myself kind of getting into that style of, preparing, resource gathering, preparing, and then trying to survive until the next round. That sounds like a thing I could do.
Yeah, it is a super fun game. It's super unique on that side. And it is the best with friends. That's how I played. That's how I've played a lot of it so far. And when you have friends, so it's very unique in that, exactly as you said, it's resource gathering to start a map off. Like everyone has to go, get their various building materials. People will have different like quests and stuff they're going on. And then at some point, you kick off the actual mission, which is where like the horde mode starts. So it's a bunch of enemies attacking a certain point. The idea being, before you kick that off, you've worked together to build up a fort, build up your defenses, put up traps, whatever you're going to do to, fend off the enemies. And you definitely have to build, because if you don't, you lose your whatever you're defending like instantly. Like other things just swarm it. So it's best in co-op, where you can talk to the people that you're dealing with to say like, oh, do you have enough resources, or here's how I want to build, or like let's do it this way. And then when you join up with random people, because the game will always be co-op, so even if you're playing alone, you'll get joined in with random people.
Sure.
For the most part, people are generally on board with like, we're going to gather for a while and then we'll kick things off and we'll make sure we've built the fort. But you definitely always have the people who start the mission too soon, or who don't want to contribute to the fort building, or whatever.
Who just want to shoot guns and don't want to bother building.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, it is a super, super fun game in co-op for that exact reason. And there are missions you get to on it where you have to defend your personal home base. And those are some of the most challenging points of the game. And with those, they're really fun to do in co-op, because all the stuff that you build will maintain. So the next time you come back to your home base, it'll still be there, unlike the other missions. So that's cool, because you can work together with your friends to spend a lot of time like planning out and thinking out this base. And it's going to stick around. That's why you can spend a little bit more time on it. So
nice.
Yeah, highly recommended on the Save the World stuff. And at some point this year, that's going to go completely free to play. So right now you have to pay to get into it, but eventually it will be free like the other side is. So yeah, Fortnite is fun. Ross, you should try it again. Are you playing on Xbox?
I am.
Okay, I will download the Xbox version and we can Fortnite it up together at some point.
Sweet. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, it's kind of in a weird place because the PC version, so that's where I've primarily been playing, and the PS4 version will like share data and stuff. So like all of my progress will go back and forth between those two platforms. The Xbox version does not link into that for some reason. I don't know why. But it's weird. Fine. Yeah,
that sounds pretty par for the course.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Xbox not playing along.
But yeah, we'll definitely jump in and check it out. To move on to our next topic, speaking of gaming, one of the things that we'd put on the list here to talk about, because it keeps coming up more and more, as time goes by, is this concept of cloud gaming in the cloud. Games are very graphically intensive now. PC gaming is huge in a place where it hasn't been in years past, and it takes a very powerful machine to run a lot of games. So a lot of companies are coming out right now. That Nvidia has their GRID system. There's a company named Liquid Sky that's doing this. There's a company called Vortex that's doing this, where they're basically turning into service-based gaming. So you don't have a fancy machine yourself. You just have your regular personal computer, and you're connecting to a remote server that is running a powerful machine, and they spin up the game for you, and you get to play. So instead of you having the game locally, you're connecting via the internet to a game running on a powerful machine, and then you're paying per time or whatever. So this is a super, super interesting thing, because I think it's a solution to an interesting problem. But I'm super interested in what you guys think about this. Is this like a thing you would use? Do you think it's cool and you would never touch it? Do you see it as the future? Like, kind of where do you land on it?
Scott?
Well, I think it's been interesting, and I've been trying to read up, watching some YouTube videos, because it's an idea it's pretty new to me. I just wonder about what type of gaming, developers and hardware folks are envisioning for this service. The idea that I would imagine a lot of folks that they maybe are targeting are probably people who already have a fairly hefty desktop system. They're already fans of World of Warcraft or The Witcher or Shadow of whatever. Name your high bandwidth, high volume, needs a graphics card to run game. Those folks already have the tower in their computer gaming area, and so this is aimed at them doing that type of gaming, but not from that desk.
Well, I think they're probably hoping that they're opening that market up to people who would not normally even play those games, but then might be interested. Like, you being someone who, doesn't have a gaming machine, has never played World of Warcraft, has never played whatever, Far Cry, but are interested in it. You're not going to plunk down the $1,000 for a gaming PC, but maybe you'd plunk down the $10 a month for their service. I would guess that's maybe the thing that they're hoping they're going to be able to capture.
Okay, and that to me sounds like if that's the audience that they're trying to capture, I think it sounds interesting. It seems like the hurdle that's still kind of out there is just the bandwidth to get it to work, even on Chromebook or laptop or whatever hardware. That it's still going to it's gonna be a hefty amount of data going into and out of. Technology problems being what they are, they just keep finding ways to make them faster, smaller. So I'm sure those are hurdles that they're going to continue to work on getting over. I think it sounds interesting. I don't know that it would be something. I guess being someone who's already made some investment in hardware, because I do want to play games and have them look good. I just don't think it would be something that I would be into. And in talking to folks, I think it's going to take some work on the part of game developers as well as hardware to reach a new audience. Folks who, I guess I just keep coming back to this idea of the games that take this that require that would require the service to work are games that you sit down and play for like hours and hours at a time.
Yeah.
The playing a game for 15 minutes is what we do on our phones with Angry Bird and whatever else. I know I'm just super dating myself with all these old iOS games, but so far the machine in everyone's hand right now in their phone. The iOS games are big business. Everyone has something. My mom plays HQ and whatever. Like the amount of gaming that's getting out there to the masses that everyone is involved in, that everyone's spending a little bit of money on, is this real quick hitting 15 minutes. And if you want to then go after a portion of that audience and say, hey, we're giving you this opportunity to play a super labor intensive, massively multiplayer online, like I just wonder, is the type of games going to change where they try and bridge some of those types of gaps? Or I'm curious where this goes. I think it is the future, but I'm curious. I don't think we're the idea of, okay, now you can play this game on your laptop. I think there are going to be some changes that have to be made to make it work, whether that's the type of game, the type of audience. I don't think it's we haven't seen the final picture yet.
So are you just saying that like gaming is changing in general and the audience is changing, that like maybe the people out there who want to, play for hours on end aren't there anymore? Is that,
or that there aren't, that it almost feels like the Nvidias, the folks who are trying to set up these types of structures maybe are trying to aim at a new audience.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder about what
that audience wants.
New audience wants to play. Yeah. What is it that they're going to be interested in, and how might that change what we're going to be seeing? Yeah,
that's a good point. I also wonder if that market exists. That market, yeah. So people who like have a laptop or have a iPad Pro or whatever, like a tablet that has a decently sized screen, but don't have a gaming computer, but are hardcore enough to want to play these games, right? Because the games that you would be playing are things that are like first person shooters, MMOs, stuff that would someone that would be into that would normally maybe already want to make the commitment to a gaming PC. So like I wonder if that segment does exist. I guess I could see it like being aimed at someone who like has a Mac or whatever and wants the full like Windows PC experience and goes that way. Or like it could be that there's this whole segment of people who just don't want to deal with the hassle of a gaming PC, and that's why they play on consoles. But if this was available, well, heck, they'll turn their Dell desktop into super high end PC for a few hours, play a game. Sure, that might exist. You pointed out bandwidth. I think that's a huge one, because we still live in a world where and even increasingly so, like Comcast putting in data caps, firm caps. Just within the last year or so, big parts of our country don't even have broadband yet, and readily accessible broadband, and I'm sure this is going to need something, better than Netflix quality to be able to stream games without any lag or anything. So like just that alone, just like internet speed, probably cuts a lot of people out of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to have some challenges to meet right off the bat.
See, I can see myself getting behind something like this.
Yeah,
because while I think the act or the process of building a PC would be really interesting. One, I might not be very good at it, And then 2, it's a lot of money, and then you have to keep up your hardware, right?
Yes.
Like hardware gets outdated, new technology comes out, and so if I was paying like $11 a month for essentially the best hardware all the time, does that come out in the wash when we start talking like long term? Like at what point in how long do I have to subscribe to the service to get to the point of where it would equal out if I just like straight up built a gaming rig?
I mean, it probably ends up being slightly more expensive. I'm just guessing, but like when that slightly more expensive is over the course of like 2 years, paying like $10-12 a month, versus like, okay, now I'm gonna plunk $400 on a video card and $200 on a CPU all at once, and then I'm gonna Lego these things together and cross my fingers. Oh my gosh, I hope this works. That probably is a much more pleasing proposition for a lot of people. You know, it's if it's a thing that I can just throw money at and then just like entertainment shows up on my screen like Netflix, that's the perfect example right there. People have shown that they will sign up for that in droves.
And I think that to get it to work, like for me to want to subscribe to it, like the catalog then has to come with it. I don't just want to pay for the GPU service, essentially.
That's a good point.
But like, I want to be able to then like boot up, Overwatch or boot up Witcher or whatever game I want to play. I want it to be available.
At
that point.
Yeah, that would be an instant sign up for me if that was the case. It would be
right.
If it was, here's $15 a month, whatever it is. Here's access to like, super high-end computers you can spin up at a moment's notice and play any of this game library. I would be in for sure. All the ones at least I've seen so far, I think, are, you can buy these games on our service and then you can pay us to play them or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then I want to be able to then use the service for, let's say like, I don't really know if I want to like plunk the money into a gaming rig, but I do know that I would like to play Overwatch on the PC. And so, okay, but like I go through their service, I buy Overwatch, and then realize like, oh yeah, I could really get into this. Like I really like mouse and keyboard, the graphics are great, the fidelity's good. Like now I'm sold on like, yes, I would do this. I will build the PC now. Now I want to bring that copy of Overwatch onto my own rig.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to then be trapped. Like I don't want it to be like some of those movie streaming services where it's like, if you pay for your movie through us, that's the only thing you can watch it through.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's dumb. Why would I do that?
Yeah, I'm already super uncomfortable about the amount of control that I give up with like licensing, and you're not actually purchasing anything when it comes to gaming anymore. Like, I don't need more of that segmentation of where I'm buying things. I will say that this could be super cool. I was just thinking about different like avenues that this could go. Everyone always talks about, like when Far Cry first came out, right? It was this insane graphical powerhouse. Computers couldn't run it as they were now. It's like the high-end machine only runs it at medium settings. What if this became super prevalent? Everyone used these services, and then games could just start being like ridiculous. Like not only are they graphically intensive, but they're doing like physics calculations that only like, $3,000 computers can run, but it doesn't matter because they're all running in the cloud anyway. Or, fact that they're in the cloud means they can sort of, spin up one giant server that does everyone's calculations or whatever. Like what if that lets gaming get pushed even farther than we can when we're not running stuff locally? That could be a cool avenue.
Because this is where I was listening to one of your episodes on the drive home. I got really excited when you were talking about there was the Battle Royale game that was going to be able to increase the player size exponentially. And I thought that's really interesting because if you could split things so that the client, the local client and the remote client would talk to one another and then just offset all of the heavy lifting, which is what I thought initially Microsoft wanted to do with their Azure servers.
Yeah, that was...
So you can rent space on their Azure servers for like whatever you want. If you have like giant data sets that you want to analyze, you can do that. But that was something that they pitched with Titanfall back, like the original Titanfall back in the day when it was just a Microsoft exclusive. Like they used the Azure servers, and it was one of the few games that actually launched with Microsoft that didn't have incredible server meltdown initially. And it's just like, so that's where I thought we were going to be heading with the Xbox One line of that console line, was like more and more of the physics, more of the heavy lifting, and the graphics would be calculated off site.
Yeah.
And then whatever was happening, like immediately, things that would give you like immediate tactile feedback, like your movement and like where you are in the XYZ planes, then that would be handled by your own console.
That was kind of what so when the Xbox One was first announced, they announced it, of course, with like always online DRM, and because you'll always be connected to the internet, here are the things we can do. And that was one of the things. And they talked about it with Crackdown of like the physics calculations will happen in the cloud, and all that stuff was going on, which of course is now not happening in the same way they were talking about. But it is an interesting idea. And, you know, back then when the Xbox One was announced, people were not ready for that future. Like they were forcing a future that's coming, but people weren't there for it, and I wasn't there for it. Thought they really bungled that. But when you look at games now, like we've signed up for that ourselves. Like look at how many games people play that are just services now, that aren't single player things that I install on my machine, stuff that's you're only playing online, or you have to be connected online, or it's only a game that you can play against 99 other people on an island, like those types of things that we experience now so much more than we used to. So like if I always had to be connected to the internet for a physics calculation for Fortnite, that'd be fine because the game is only online, right? Like
right.
So that I could see like that circling around and becoming a thing again now that games are so much more of a service than they used to be as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are some pretty cool opportunities in that model. The idea that the box in my room doesn't have to do as much computing, that I would pay for a service, me and the other 5 million people paying for the service would be funding, server farms after server farms that can take on some pretty hefty work. And with game developers programming for that model versus the one that they are now could lead to some pretty cool innovation.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's like the big jumps that have to happen is, one, you have to not have a company like Nvidia doing it. Like anything that Nvidia announces or puts out, I feel like all of their marketing and stuff is just instantly puts off like 90% of consumers. Like I don't know what it is about them, but anything that they talk about just makes it seem like, oh, I'm never gonna get this. This is not something for me. And you have to get there in terms of like value. Like you have to have a proposition, like we were talking about, that just seems too good to be true. Like that's how Netflix streaming got as huge as it did. Like you told people like, hundreds and hundreds of things you can watch for $7.99 or whatever it started out as. And it just seemed like an embarrassment of riches. And I think this has to get to that point of, I can play this many games for only this amount, and I don't need a crazy computer. Like it just has to sort of, talk you into it from that. But yes, anyway, that is cloud gaming. It'll be interesting to see kind of if there's a big player that comes out in the next year or two. Like if there is a Netflix of this category that starts becoming the front runner. Because right now it seems a little too splintered to sort of like pick one and like try it out. You're sort of waiting for the VHS Betamax wars to end. Speaking of this, was it Ross that put on the GDP Win 2 story, or was that you, Scott?
That was me.
Okay, I was looking into this thing. Why don't you tell me about the GPD Win 2?
Well, like I mentioned in our write-up, it's not something that I have seen firsthand. Something I've been reading a little bit about, and kind of I got to thinking about, in one of the advantages of the Nvidia systems we were talking about would be being able to game a little less traditionally.
Yeah.
You know, not having to sit at the desk in the computer and being able to do it from the couch, being able to do it from wherever. And so are there any alternatives to the desktop gaming? And I came across this GPD Win 2. They're a Indiegogo crowd-funded outfit, and this is the second iteration of a handheld gaming computer, and it looks it's got a 6-inch screen. It's got a full keyboard that's meant to be typed with your thumbs, so pretty small. It has bumpers, joysticks. You can kind of Google it. I think it's got a pretty interesting look to it, and for being a very, very small, I mean, I looked at it and started getting flashbacks of the old Texas Instruments calculators we had in school. Just that, and that it's touting being able to play some, standard PC games. I think the disclaimer is, of course, that we are just not we don't live on the Enterprise yet. We don't.
Yeah.
We can't have all the computing that we want in the very palm of our hand, like a tricorder. Like we're just not there yet. But this is, all these little tiny baby steps to getting there. The things that it seems the GPD Win 2 does well would be emulators, being able to play older generation games from an emulator in the palm of your hand. It's a Windows machine. It also seems to do Steam at home.
That seems super useful to me, is the streaming Steam. I can sit on the couch, play with a controller, and but it's really just playing on my home computer. That makes a lot of sense.
It's still a pretty hefty price tag, I think, for what it is. It's not a true alternative to a desktop or even a laptop.
Yeah.
And it's still running $600 at the moment. But I just think that the fact that this is now the second iteration that's come out. So obviously they had a little bit of demand for the first one, enough to go out and make a second. And looking around, they don't have a lot of competition, but there are a couple of other lesser attempts by other companies. So it seems like, you think with as many devices as we have in our lives right now, that they're trying to shoehorn in yet one more, smaller than a laptop, smaller than a netbook, bigger than your phone, shoehorn in this small gaming computer, I think is interesting. And it does, just like the Switch, it seems like there's an effort to get away from the TV, to get away from the desk, to have some alternatives. And I thought this was an interesting one.
I watched some of the videos of it that they had put up, and it's kind of impressive. Like they're playing like Doom, and it looks really good. Like it looks like Doom. There was one of Tekken, and it was pretty clear that one maybe Tekken's not the most optimized thing in the world, and the characters are a little chunky and a little pixelated. So of course it depends on the game, just like it does on your big machine too. But it does work. It's a Windows machine. It feels like a very inelegant solution, and I think that's exactly what they're intending. Is we're gonna jam a powerful PC in this handheld, and it's gonna have way too many buttons, and the thing on each side has 3 shoulder buttons on each side, 3 buttons in a triangle shape, and it's got the the Xbox style buttons kind of just jammed in there, right above this keyboard. The whole thing feels very Microsoft design, where it's just we're just all the functionality, everything's here. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's just all gonna be jammed on this thing. So in a way, that's kind of beautiful. I really like that exists. I think for me, and I think having a PSP and then having a PS Vita especially, and now having a Switch, the thing that I realize about handheld gaming, having the Vita and stuff too, is I don't necessarily want the full console experience or the full PC gaming experience on the go. Like when the Vita came out and it was so powerful, everyone just started porting their console games over to it, or just doing those types of experiences, which were technically very impressive. Like, oh my gosh, I can play this game that's basically exactly like this console game on this handheld. And then you realize it's like, yeah, but it's not really designed for like portability. You know, I have to wear headphones so I can hear all the voice acting, and I need to devote an hour at a time just to make it through each mission. And like, it's not designed for me to sit on a bus. It's not designed for me to sit on an airplane.
You will miss your bus stop. Like, you have to focus.
Right, exactly.
About that with the Switch. Like, I'm going to be on the train here coming up in the next month.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to be playing some Zelda, and I'm going to have to like concentrate. Like, okay, 2 more stops. I need to remember 2 more stops from now. I have to get off the train. I can't.
Which like the Switch is nice because like for those types of experiences, like that's why it hooks to the TV, right? And then when you're on the go, it has stuff for, you know, things that you can do that are a bit more, you know, on the go-able or whatever, if you will. But like this is going to be, and again, it's a PC, so you can play whatever you want. But like, yeah, the concept of just like, now I'm just gonna bang out some GTA while I'm riding the bus, like just makes no sense to me.
The old lady on the bus behind you is freaking out.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Slaughtering hookers.
But yeah, it's certainly wild, and yet like a thing like this does feel like a stopgap in between, you know, where we are now versus in the future, where yes, we can connect to these streaming services or whatever, but it's certainly an interesting little device. That is definitely true.
Yeah, it should be cool.
But I feel like it should be marketed by like the people that brought you the ergonomically designed Duke. Come.
It does have that look to it. It's a very like workman-like thing. It just is like, it's not pretty. It's probably too big. It sort of looks like a Dell laptop shrunk down a little bit, but you know, here it is.
You really want to meet the guy that first pitched it, and he got the notes of like, so do you think it like is comfortable? It's like, works, don't it?
Yeah, it does look like they've ignored anyone who ever said anything about ergonomics.
But I like where their head's at.
Me too, yeah. Like I really appreciate that it exists. I think that it's a cool.
So it reminds. Do you guys remember the phase that came out like in 2009, 2010? It was the mini laptop. Like, if you can't be inconvenienced by your 12-inch laptop, here's an 8-inch version of it.
So I had one of those when we were in college.
Had an Acer.
Yeah, I definitely had one of those. Yeah,
I did as well, and I couldn't do shit on it because I couldn't fit my hands on it to type.
Yeah, it was very hard. Mine, I remember like never like actually being convenienced by. I was only ever inconvenienced by the fact that it existed. Like, man, I should have brought the big laptop, I guess, because I can't do anything on this one.
So this is kind of what it reminds me of like, it's not quite a PC and it's not quite a DS. But
yeah,
they're giving it a good shot. Or because initially on like you just see the picture at the top of this web page, and I was like, how are you going to do AWS and spacebar on that little tiny keyboard? How are you going to move your little dude around?
Well, yeah,
I get the thumb keyboard now.
Yeah,
I'm with it now.
I think this thing is like super powerful. I'm reading some of the specs. It's like they're running Grand Theft Auto 5 on maximum settings, and they're getting like 38 frames from it. Like, that's pretty impressive. And yeah, I really think that they're only able to push that because the resolution on the screen is like 720p, like at most or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still pretty crazy. It's pretty wild. I wonder what, like, you know, you take like I wonder how the CPU in this thing compares to like what's in your phone. Like if your phone decided to run Windows and then play these games, I wonder like what it would compare, like in terms of power.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I was in looking at. I'm not a huge specs guy, but it does seem like they really shoehorned as much as they could into this thing. It's got a full fan. It's got 2 batteries. I mean, they're like all of the pieces that you would imagine in a normal desktop. They've somehow shrunk to the size of peas and smashed them into this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got more memory than my work computer.
That's saying something.
You should.
Sure.
That's what you take into the boss on Monday. Like, look at this.
We need to talk about an upgrade.
We need to have a talk.
This Polly Pocket computer is better in every way.
Yes, you need to paint it pink also before you.
It does, from the back, the closed clamshell, it looks like a full-size laptop with the fan and everything that you're talking about. It just, pretty ridiculous looking. But that's the GPD Win 2. What a great name as well. Just, rolls right off the tongue.
It really grabs you, doesn't it? It really it really lets you know what it is and how awesome it is.
While we're on this, not playing games locally, all this sort of thing, or Netflix of games type deal. Ross, tell me about the Xbox Game Pass, because they made some changes to it, right? Recently,
they did make some changes to it, and so a quick background of the Xbox Game Pass is it essentially does exactly what Josh said, which it wants to be the Netflix of games. So it wants to house this library that you would then have remote access to and could then download. You still have to download it locally, but you don't have to physically buy the game.
Okay.
You just pay the subscription fee. And up until this point, it has had a lot of older games. A lot of the 360 catalog got ported to it. Some of the first Xbox One games are now on it. But they are they announced it. Did they announce it at this past E3, so 2017, or was it even a 2016 E3? I forget the release date on it, but it was just kind of okay, sure. I mean, I guess I could do that, or you already made it back compat on a lot of the games that I have that I would want to play. So why would I? There was no incentive for me to go in and pay for this service, but about 3 weeks ago, I think, they announced that they would be bringing all of their... So first, there's an existential crisis that Xbox has to resolve, but we'll get to that here in a second.
Yes.
Which their selling point was all exclusive Microsoft games will be coming to this.
Sure.
And they'd already said that any exclusive games would be Play Anywhere titles, so there's that to consider too. Why it could be a good service where you could play it on PC or Xbox. A lot of the games that are new would be able to do that, I think. But Xbox didn't pump any infrastructure into acquiring exclusive third-party games for the longest time, and now they're just now starting to.
Well, I think in general, first-party games are becoming kind of less and less of a deal. Of course the Switch has a ton of exclusive first party games because that's all they do. But you look at PS4 and Xbox One right now, it's the majority of the games you care about are third party, are showing up on both. Who cares? So yeah, when you start with the thing of every first party exclusive game will be on this, you're sweet. And then you start thinking about the games that are coming out. That's that means you get Crackdown 3 sometime. You're I don't care. Okay, the list feels very
we decide
small.
That we can release that game.
Yeah, yeah. Once you look at the reality of what that means, it's very tiny.
Because they dropped this when the Sea of Thieves beta hype started to spin up.
Yeah,
and they were day one, you can play Sea of Thieves on this service, and that would be if you weren't really set on dropping, because they do the just like Netflix used to. You get the first month free or half price if you're a gold member or whatever. So it's for $15, sure, I'll see what Sea of Thieves is about and stuff like that. But I think it brings to light. It's good that they're trying to incentivize this service, because I think it could potentially be really neat, especially if you're a person that likes to bounce from games, or it's I feel like playing, Halo Reach again, but I don't own the disc anymore. I sold that in the garage sale 3 years ago.
Yeah. You
could go do that for relatively little cost. But at the same time, you're paying again for things that you might actually have sitting on the shelf right now. And so there's not really any incentive to do it. And the fact that they highlighted their exclusives really made me think okay, so the exclusives that you have got mothballed. There's Halo, which you bungled.
Yeah.
You did okay on Gears of War, from what I've played, but like you don't have a lot of lineup geared towards that because 3 years ago your executive said like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't think that's the future of gaming, and let Sony just like 360 slam dunk your ass. Sorry, but it was just like if you look at the lineups that are coming out between the two major video game companies, like Microsoft is not keeping pace with things like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us. Like they don't have those big games. They're starting to come out now, right? Because you have Sea of Thieves, Crackdown. There's the zombie one that I meant to look up and completely.
State of Decay 2. That's the third game that they're pushing as part of the so if you visit the Game Pass website, all the marketing is like, Xbox exclusives, and they're putting Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, and Crackdown 3 on the front of the ads for everything.
So this is I think in the same vein of Nvidia, of like it sounds like it should be a good deal, but you got to get a reason to trigger. Like you got to make it seem like you were losing money if you don't sign up for this service. Like this is the Pent ultimate Xbox experience, and I just don't know if it's quite there yet. But I am interested in hearing more, or at least allowing there to be more competition with it. Maybe EA has theirs, but it's kind of handled in this weird VIP club sort of way that I don't quite like. Right?
Well, for the PS4 side?
No, for like EA games. So as a publisher.
So EA has their own service that's like their own, like exactly what this is, but just for EA games. Because I guess they're the CBS of the video game world, where they had to spin off their own stupid service for their own stupid games. But it's interesting that you point this out in the PS4 and the exclusives and stuff. Because I think you're right. Like within the past couple years, Sony has like gotten like there are relatively few exclusive games on each platform, but the ones that Sony has gotten have been like generally really good. Like Horizon, you mentioned. Like I just bought the $50 like here's the DLC, here's everything package for Horizon. Have been playing it, and it's incredible. And I can't think of the last like exclusive thing on Xbox that I was like really stoked about. And I'm certainly not like dying to play State of Decay 2. Like it looks fine, but like
it looks interesting, right? Like,
but I'm not like generally excited.
Experimental if you're going to have it be I think this would be a great platform for like their indie developers, or for like those games that maybe you're not real certain about. Mm-hmm. I think this could be a great thing of like, I don't know if I want to spend $60 on that disc, but I will give it, let's give it a go for the weekend. Like, so you and your friends play it, just like some of these betas that have come out that have either, altered perception one way or another. I think it's a great platform for that. Some of the smaller developers maybe that don't have the gravitas to pull off like an independent release could, package it through this and get it sponsored by Microsoft or whatever. But they're hurting, I think, a little bit because they don't have those standalone exclusive experiences to like have that be the pillar that like, well, of course, like that's where I want to play that game. So I'm going to like, I'll go play the next Halo or whatnot. And then allow the consumer to find these hidden gems. Just like the reason that people went with the Netflix service was for a particular series, or like HBO, right? HBO is fantastic at doing this. We're going to market, one or two series hardcore, and they're like the production values are going to be insane. And then you find all these others that are, up to the same standards, but are maybe not the first thing you thought would catch your eye.
Yeah, sure. I think that the indie stuff would definitely help if that got pushed to the forefront. I think the big thing for me is when you look at a service like this, and from just a pure perception standpoint, everything is just old, and that's by its very necessity, right? Like to fill out this game library, we have to throw in Halo Wars as one of your 100 games because that's just what we have. We have to go back that far, right? But like you look at like Netflix, for example, and they do have, older movies and stuff, but like the things they push to the top are like, you know, new this week or just released, and like they can surface things that are hip and cool and new. And you look at something like the PlayStation Plus games that come out every month and the Xbox games that come out every month. Like, yes, they're old games, but people get excited, even if it's a tiny indie game, when it's something new. And I think PlayStation's really good about that. Like when Rocket League launched, it was free, right? And then that was part of why that game blew up so big. So I think even if it was these tiny indie games where maybe they wouldn't even have released on the Xbox before, if they went and grabbed those and were able to put them on the service and say, like, look, it's a new thing that comes with your $10 a month, I think that would go a long way for perception, rather than what it is now, where it's, all right, I plunked down $10, let's see what I got. Oh, Farming Simulator 15. Oh, well.
The Goat Simulator's on there.
Yeah.
But something I was thinking about, so you updated some stuff this morning, and I was looking, and then I went back and did some remembering and looking up how Netflix initially launched their streaming service, because it's not at all how they initialized their business model, right? It used to be
DVDs by mail, yeah.
Yep, DVDs by mail, and so you signed up for however many, and I, in college, signed up for like the one disc at a time. You'd send it and get it back, send it and get it back, and then they came out with this like, hey, because you're this level of member, we're going to give you this for free. And it was something that you could run, like, you paid like $2 more a month. I got like a second disc and the streaming service that ran through the Xbox 360, which is the reason I upgraded to it. I was like, oh, let's just see what this is. Will I even use it? And I think there's a missed opportunity with things like this, that if you're already paying the company for a service, which you do, right? You pay for a monthly or a yearly access to their internet network, their infrastructure. We pay Xbox Live prices or PS Club
Plus.
I don't know.
PlayStation Plus.
PSN?
Yeah, PSN. Yeah. And so why not like tack this on until you realize like, oh, now it's how I experience the Xbox, and they're like, oh, well, you know, it's developed, it's matured, we see it's popular enough. Now if you want to use it, you pay, $5, $7, $10 a month.
Well, yeah, because Netflix has done that now, right? Where it was originally it was tacked on, and then it got kind of spun out, and you could get it alone. And now, lo and behold, the prices have slowly gone up, to sort of match what they're offering, and everybody's in now. It's like
everybody's in. They're producing their own content, which is like something I think this could be really good. Of like this is a Game Pass title that was like, it's an independently funded. Essentially, you crowdfunded this title.
Yeah, could you imagine like
subscription? Like
the first game that was Game Pass exclusive, not Xbox exclusive, Game Pass exclusive, that was a big indie hit that people were talking about and became the game you had to play. That would get so many people to sign up. Just play that game.
Oh man.
Yeah,
but then okay. So the instant the very next thought is, I haven't been on cable for quite a while. Sure. And it feels good, like, not to have a cable bill. But I pay for internet, and I pay for Netflix, and Hulu, and HBO, and I essentially pay for cable now. With all of the individual services because I want to watch the show on this network, and I want to watch the show. So I just see the Xbox does theirs, and PSN does theirs, and Ubisoft someday goes crazy and decides we're going to do ours too, and we're going to take all of our games off of the competing services and make our own. So now we've got like 4 or 5 different
and
service,
and you're back to just paying a la carte
subscribe
cable.
to.
Yeah. That's true. I'm at my saturation point there with video services, because I just don't care. Like, I just listen, CBS, like, chill out. I don't need to see your exclusive stuff. And even HBO, it's like, you're cool and all, but you're not $15 a month cool. I'm sorry.
You're $15 a month cool only for 3 months of the year.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I'm weirdly not there with games. Like, I guess I am paying, PSN and Xbox Live and stuff, and because that's costs you forget about, right? Like, having both of those, that's like $120 a year that like I'm getting a couple games from that I play a year, maybe, you know, at most with the ones they're coming out with. So yeah, like I completely agree. Like tacking on yet another $10 a month service, because you know, not only do you have video services, like you probably have Spotify or Google Music, like I do, or whatever. Like, you know, it's just everything in your life is now delivered to you via $10 a month. Having one more of those is scary, but maybe in the long run it would save you money. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like if they did it well.
And I do appreciate the point. I don't know who added it to our write-up, but the idea that if this could somehow become a replacement model for microtransactions, like I would definitely warm to that idea. Like if you're saving me from being nickel and dime to death somewhere else,
yeah,
then I could I would definitely have an easier time getting on board. You know, if I'm not having to, I can't imagine the two compounded on top of each other. Like that would be, I would be right out on that if I had to pay for microtransactions within a game that I continue to pay a monthly fee for. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, but as an alternative too, I think there could be some. I mean, I would be up for that.
I mean, WoW has been doing that, right? Like you pay an access fee for that so the note I put in was kind of trying to bridge the games as a service and this exclusivity topic that kind of spins up out of this Game Pass topic, which is like, how do you get people to buy into the service? Well, you need to have something that people want, and then, like we said, allow them to explore. Like, is the reason that we're not seeing so many like story-driven games is because like they are ephemeral, right? Like once you play through at least video games don't quite have the replayability at times like books and movies do, where if you have a really engaging, captivating video game, you play through it, you experience that, and then like, okay, I beat it. Like at least that's kind of how I grew up with games. Like you beat the game. Yeah. Like even my parents still ask me, because I tell them like that I bought a new game or whatever when we were chatting on the phone, and they're like, oh, did you beat it? I'm like, well, you don't really beat this one.
Yeah.
And it seems like more and more of them that I buy, you know, like the Destinies and Overwatches and things like that, Titanfalls, like you don't beat those, you play those.
Yep.
And so we're seeing, or at least I'm feeling this like vacuum of games that used to be very linear and then like kept you around with a multiplayer don't really exist anymore. It's either like games as a service or as this like living and expanding world, but there's not this sort of point A to point B game. And I'm wondering if that's because like you can't make as much money from that.
Yeah.
Through those microtransactions. And so would a service like this maybe revitalize that lingering market?
I could definitely see that. Because I mean, like, I think that games have moved away from the, you know, linear story-based single-player game with no multiplayer, because games need to be sticky now from a business sense, right? Like if you play through your 8-hour story mode, then you go sell it back to GameStop, and then someone else buys it, and then the developer, you know, has had 2 people play their game that only one person paid for, you know, and maybe that happens 3 times with that one copy. And they're losing out on these sales, right? So they need the first person who bought it to feel like he's never done with it, or to feel like he has to put more money into it every year to keep with the new stuff. And then, you know, they have a continual revenue stream from the one person rather than just, you know, fractional revenue as that one copy gets sold back. And, you know, I think we're seeing that all over games for that exact reason, is like, some businessman in a suit that works at these companies has a spreadsheet that just shows that, like, well, if you put, you know, horse armor in your game where people can buy for $2, we suddenly make $1 billion more in games every year. Let's keep doing that.
Right.
But yeah, I think like if the horse armor is getting into the Game Pass, you know, if that you know $10 a month is essentially the putting down your money, committing to continually paying the service, then yeah, maybe that does mean then we can tell, you know, narrative games that aren't trying to get their hooks in you, that aren't trying to be sticky. They can be games that you know, play for 8 hours and then don't think about again because, hey, there's 99 other games you could play this month. Yeah, that's a good thought.
Because I've been missing that in in college, and then after college, like I would go and pick up a game that was older, because it was cheaper, and like that's what I would play that weekend. I remember just tearing through like the Dead Space series.
Yeah,
and it was this linear single player. Let me survive this ship or whatever.
Yeah,
and they were like, I was super engaged with them. Like I played the crap out of those games, but like I put it down at some point because like I was done. I finished. I didn't do all the collectibles, but I got the story that I wanted to get out of it. I watched the movie. And I've just been missing something like that of like, I want something to play just like this weekend. Yeah. I don't want it to be a 3 or 4 year commitment. Because Scott and I were talking about this, like all of the hype that's been around Monster Hunter. And then you look and all of the reviews and have been really great. I've been listening to some streamers and podcasts about it. They're like, oh, like at hour 40, I finally get it. And I'm like, no. Yeah, it's an entire work week getting through the tutorial to understand how this game works.
Yeah, I mean, like games feel like you're signing up for things now, right? Like even something like Destiny, it feels like I'm not gonna dabble and see what this is about. It's like, no, I'm committing to something. Like this is serious. I have to, put in hours and hours of this. I have to schedule things. And yeah, I agree with you. Like it's at some point it's like let's just go back to entertainment. Where was that at? Let's do that.
A little bit. And I think that if it's done right, then you get that whole mix and like publishers and bigger organizations like Microsoft or Sony that are the umbrellas that then all of these other things latch onto. I think that they benefit at that point because then you don't have like, what is it like? My economics is terrible. So if we put it into science terms, you don't have two things that are filling, right? Like you separate it. They're dividing the market, then they're not overlapping.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, nothing that fell flat. Thanks, guys. But I just think that if you diversify the type of content that you're making, then everybody doesn't get burnt out on one particular thing.
Yeah.
Like I think that probably the smartest thing EA did was be like, yeah, since everybody's A, mad at us, B, mad at Destiny, and C, there's like 8 Destiny type things out right now. Maybe we should just like chill out. This is coming out 2019, guys.
Yeah, hold it back. Yeah, speaking of the like moving around between things so you don't get burnt out, like that's like the type of gamer that I am for sure. And I feel like that is going away. People are devoting. We talked about this before. Devoting themselves to just one game. Like I'm not necessarily like a gamer. I play Dota or whatever. Like it's my thing, right? And I'm definitely a game tourist where it's like I'm playing a fighting game this week, but next week I'm going to whatever else new came out. And things stay fresh because I'm bouncing around in them. But
I so badly want to see Twitch artwork for your channel that is just like palm trees on the bottom, like the video game tourist. Where's Josh taking us this week?
That's like a really good description.
A little suitcase with stickers all over.
Yeah, and the stickers are just like logos of games. Just
that'd be great. There you go, done.
Speaking of game tourism, let's talk about one of the games you can get with the Xbox Game Pass.
Yes, I was hoping that would lead right to it.
Yeah, let's talk about Sea of Thieves because since the last episode we had, the Sea of Thieves beta came out. People were able to get in and play some of that, and I heard generally very positive things about the game. And I will preface my naysaying that's about to happen by saying that I did not play this game with friends, unfortunately. I didn't have a chance to get in with you guys or anything when it was going on. So I wanted to get a feel for like the mechanics of the game at the very least. So I did some like single player boating, went on a few of the hunts, the treasure hunts.
Captain's hat.
Yeah, I was wearing a captain's hat. And if you're out there and you're not aware, Sea of Thieves is a pirate game, basically. The whole premise being that you alone or you and friends, ideally, are the pirates that run a single pirate ship. You're all the crew. You all have different jobs while the ship is running. So someone might be moving the sails while someone is steering the boat, while someone is on lookout to point out where the other enemy pirates are and stuff. someone's looking at the map to navigate, and you're going on treasure hunts. So you have like a treasure map that has an X marks the spot in a certain place. There's riddles and stuff, and you go and you dig in that place, and you get the treasure, and you take it back. My thing with this game is everything is just pure tedium. Like you know, are sailing around on the boat, and that's like actually kind of fun, because especially like when you're by yourself, you have to like micromanage every little piece and like bounce back and forth between stuff. So it's like you're like, okay, the sails need to get turned this way. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, now I need to, you know, run over and like steer the boat in the other direction. And like, okay, now I need to go check the map and make sure I'm going in the right way. And like, not only because you can't see the map the whole time, you have to like remember your heading. You're like, all right, I need to go, you know, north by northwest, and then after I round this island, I need to go south, and you know, all those things happening is super fun. Then you get to an island, right? Especially if you're not like following on a quest, you get to an island and like maybe there are things to kill, which is like super not good. Like the combat's really terrible, and there's nothing else. Like you can pick up some more cannonballs, maybe you can pick up some wood, some bananas, but they give you these like big awesome islands, and there's nothing to do unless you have a treasure map, and then you can go dig in the right spot. And then you have to lug this stupid thing back onto the boat and leave it in the boat. And then when you get back to the place you're dropping it off at, which again, parking a boat's hard. That takes a while. You end up parking like a mile offshore just so you don't crash your stupid boat. And then you grab the big treasure chest. And meanwhile, you picked up 2 of them. It took 2 trips. You have to get one at a time and walk it all back to shore and swim in, and then all right, here's this.
Salty seeing dog Josh. This is great.
Then you got to go back to the boat and get the other one. The whole game just feels like, all right, like I see what I'm doing. Like I hate this in like puzzle games too, where it's like I get the A to B to C, I just don't want to complete it because it's boring and it's dumb. So that was this game. It was pretty. Like the water is gorgeous. I really like sailing the boat.
By far the best water simulator I've seen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But then you get to the actual game and it sucks playing it. That's where I'm at. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on like playing it together though. Like
I feel like
Scott,
Josh had the experience of like he has to go to Myers and he has to get milk and eggs and toilet paper. So he has to go and he has to park the car and he has to go get those things and he has to get in line behind the crying baby, and he gets to the checkout lady who doesn't care and accidentally breaks it. Like he's had this experience of going shopping and coming back. And I feel like Ross and I and a couple other folks, like we had the same experience, except we're like those idiot 15-year-old kids running around Myers, like playing with the balls in the toy aisle and like hitting each other with the swimming noodles.
Like I was pushing Smiz down the aisle really fast and
we were like in the carts, like riding underneath the shopping carts, you know?
Yeah.
While someone else is, yeah. Because it's, I mean, you described the game perfectly, and my rebuttal would be, I don't know that I came into shore without crashing ever.
No, me neither.
There was no anchoring. There was just, I'm just going to run this aground and try and get the chest up where it needs to be and get the boat fixed before it sinks.
It's a fun game to play. To wreck the boat, unload it, try to get back and fix it before it sinks.
Let me just describe my process of parking generally in this game. It is the same thing. It's like, all right, we're coming in a little hot. I should probably drop the anchor. Oh, too late. Okay, gonna go down, gonna fix the holes, and then gonna drain the boat out. Okay, now we can deal with parking. Yeah, no, every time. Yeah.
But I think I had a good time with it. I did do both, some solo queuing and playing with folks. And I think the basic premise of a decent game is there, but I do see where, and they said as much in their game intro and tweets and things. This isn't what we played wasn't the finished. It's not the game that we're going to be playing next month.
Good.
That there is going to be.
Super excited about.
And it makes sense. I mean, even on the main outpost where you turn loot in, there were obvious shacks set up with no vendors in them.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be hopefully more to do, more to work with. How to what degree we get more of a game, I'm not sure. Because I agree. Like the islands, some of the like you could tell that a lot of thought went into the designs of the islands themselves.
Yes,
but all there is to do there is the combat is not good.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Trying to beat up skeletons was not great, and even the PvP combat was kind of, I don't know, wasn't really my thing. But there was some obvious thought put into the design of these islands, but all you get to do there is wildly hack away at some skeletons and dig up chests. Like there wasn't anything else,
like at best, like that is a good island if there's some skeletons and a chest, like from my experience in the game, the first time I dropped in, the game doesn't guide you at all, like the beta did, and I'm sure the actual game will have some sort of a tutorial, but I completely missed the little shack I was supposed to go to give me the treasure map and like start the actual game. So I'm just like, cool ship, and hopped in it and started figuring out how the ship works, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to this island, and that's probably where a lot of excitement's going to happen. And I walked down every stupid path on that stupid island, and there was nothing there. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe that was just a weird dud island. Let's go check out another one. Same thing on the other island. There's nothing there. So then finally, like, worked my way back to, like, the main starting point, found the correct shack, realized, okay, this was what I was supposed to do the whole time. But yeah, the game just feels empty right now. It just feels like there's not enough in this world to justify me, piloting around this world. So hopefully the actual game fills that out a bit more.
So I had the exact same experience because I jumped on like early, and it was just me, so I completely missed the treasure map vendor.
Yeah.
I was wandering around, and like I got the boat kind of figured out, but I got in this storm that completely capsized the boat.
Oh, wow.
Like, I was like, oh, here I am. What happens now?
I'm dead.
So that part was like interesting because like it was like it took me a second to realize, oh, they're not going to hold your hand through the beta. And then I got to thinking like Rare, who is the company behind this, right?
Yep.
They're old school in their video game lineage, like Battletoads and some of the some older games. So I thought, well, that kind of fits, right? And maybe they're thinking of it a beta not as a sampler platter of everything that you might be able to expect, just shortened. So we're not getting everything in there. But like, no, like we want to have the servers stable. The world is up. It can be populated. People can tool around and do these little things. And let's see where the bugs are. And so like maybe we got an old school beta out of it because they are an old school game. Or a company, I mean.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, yeah, the concept of a beta is just so, completely bastardized at this point from what a beta should actually be. It is an early demo for the most part. So yeah, I mean,
because it's always humorous to see people be like, "Oh, the beta was so." That's why they're having the beta. Please go report those bugs. That's what they're wanting you to do.
Yeah,
that's in the like terms of service that you signed when you logged in.
Exactly.
I do think. My general overall for it was it was definitely more fun with other people,
for sure.
And so I think that as a multiplayer game, it was interesting. I guess my wish list would be, it seems like there's a potential for a lot of different kinds of loot, which sounds kind of cool. And like we talked about, maybe a little bit more varied game content. And if there was any way to have like a GTA style passive mode, like I don't even mind being in the world with other people, and I know it kind of detracts a little bit without the combat, but there's certainly some. I think the least enjoyable part of it for me was encountering other players who obviously all they'd done all weekend was play and gotten good at it, and it just kind of got old not being able to. It didn't feel very even, the gameplay. And so I spent a lot of time dead, which is fine, but it just wasn't as enjoyable.
Yeah,
that is the weakest part of the game.
The combat
for me the combat I think could work if it was just like you against the skeletons and stuff. but it's when you bring the other players into it. So they have issues, I think, with the fluidity and just the responsiveness. And then the respawn system, I am hoping is just like, we're going to leave that in there because at least it freaking works. And we have this other respawn in the actual game because it was miserable to die to other people.
It's just the like, well, I guess I didn't ever die. I just had my ship destroyed. So what happens when you die?
So when you die, you actually they made a really awesome animation. For you die. You go to like the river of Styx, and there's a boat captain.
I did die once. Okay, yeah.
Who is like cruising you around, and you wait a certain amount of time, and then the world reloads, and you can step off the boat into the world again.
That's right.
So that part is really cool. But from a PvP side of thing, if the only reason you're a pirate is to go and kill other pirates, there's no end game in that. So if you are like a 1 or a 2-man crew, so you technically should be a faster ship. You're not as, you don't have as much firepower, but you can maneuver a whole lot easier. So if Scott and I come up on your like giant 4-man galley and we just wreck house, you guys spawn back on your ship and can like shank us. Like there's nothing.
Oh.
There is no like boon at the end of it of like, you wiped the whole team. Now the ship is yours for, then, that team of 4 goes and spawns in some other part of the map and they've lost their ship effectively, and then you could loot it. Like there's no way to do that.
So like in whatever scenario, if like, I shoot myself in a cannon or whatever, if I end up on that ship and I kill everybody, they're just going to reappear on that same ship? Like right?
Yep.
Like,
so the ship is your spawn point.
That's so
or the
and
mermaid
there are
that
only,
spawns
there
when
are
your
only
ship
like
dies.
2 different spawn points on the ship. And so what ends up happening is everyone knows where those 2 spots are, and so they stand just far enough back that you'll spawn in.
And then you get blasted in the face.
And then they kill you again.
This is,
like it just becomes this
broken.
never-ending loop.
Yeah. And so that part was just broken and miserable. And so that is what... So I got to play all 3 ships. So the single-person ship, there's a double ship, and then there's the 4-person.
Mm-hmm.
The 4-person ship I played with Scott and then 2 other friends of ours. And like the ship itself takes a little bit of getting used to because it is quite a beast to maneuver with 4 people. Like I thought I was hustling with one.
Oh yeah,
like manning a ship by myself. But you're always doing something. If you have one person that is just like steering the ship is his job, then everybody else is just running all over the place trying to make sure that this thing is going where it's supposed to. But we got like spawn camped, which just completely ruined that experience. Like we got our map, we made it. We're still figuring out how to drive the ship. We made it to the island, and there's this like little sloop, and it comes up. They launch a dude on there, and he's got like the blunderbuss, and he just wiped the whole team. And then we just kept wiping over and over and over and over and over and over.
That's terrible. That's
okay. So like, how do we get out of this gameplay loop? And so that spoiled that for me on the 4-man, and it also did one of the guys that we play with. Like he was just like, that was miserable. That was terrible.
Yeah, it would take one time of that, and I would never ever want to do that again. Yeah,
but like the 2-man ship, we had a really I played with this buddy of mine, and we played for like hours and hours that week because there was a flu outbreak, so I didn't have to go to work. And so I played Sea of Thieves, and we had a great time. Like he was in charge of steering the ship, and then like I was handling all the other stuff, and we pillaged, and we got. Like, you could get away from people, which was nice because we didn't get attacked when we were in dock too many times. Mm-hmm. But, like, you could see a sail, and they would start coming at you, and then we would make the choice, like, are we going to fight or are we going to bail? And, like, 90% of the time we bailed. But you could, like, change the sails and stuff so that you could have the wind advantage and, like, book it out of there.
Yeah.
Which was really kind of fun. It added a new element to it, which was, like, do we really want to fight these guys? And one time we did, and we fought them to the extent that we sank their ships so then we could get away.
Nice. See,
and
like
that was really fun.
I feel like when you have a pirate game like this with, I don't know how you achieve this with multiplayer, but in real pirate world, right? Like seeing another ship doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get in a knockdown, drag out, one of our ships is sunk, everyone's dead scenario. Like there's going to be this like uneasy, like, are they going to turn towards us? Watch them. Like, are they going to come? Are they going to come at us? Are they coming? All right, we're just going to very uneasily pass each other. We're all good here. We're all good.
Yeah, everybody's good, right?
And like, I want that
Cannons
scenario, like
poised and just waiting for like the
right, yeah,
light
like
shot to be fired.
We had one of those, and it's definitely not the norm, right? Because like all video games just teach you to go for confrontation, right? Like,
sure.
Oh, I should get something cool if I take those people down. But like you didn't in this one, and so we definitely had that where like I was up in the crow's nest with my little spyglass, and I was like, he looks like he's trying to turn. No, he sees us. Okay, he's going away. No, what's he doing? And it was just like, okay, what's happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting because then like my buddy was the one changing the sails because he had somebody to watch all the time, and we like finally got away, and like it was we made it way more stressful than it actually was, but it was a good time because then like storms rolled in and other things were happening. We definitely pulled a black sails moment where like one crew turned in their big galley to try to come after us, but we were faster. And he was like, I'm going to sail into the storm. Like, what? No, don't sail into that storm because your boat fills up with water when it rains.
Yeah.
Which is a great effect. But like, the boat is like jostling all over the place. I'm trying to, like, I'm getting seasick looking at my monitor. Why did you sail into a storm?
See, like all that stuff
really
is cool, but when it's more like, you know, it's not that where like it's like a weird, you know, this weird like tenuous like sort of treaty between other ships, or where like, oh, someone is getting me and I'm going to try to get away. When it just becomes, well, we dropped into a multiplayer map and instantly died. That's right. Less fun for me. So I don't know. I'm not sure like what the fix for that is. Like if it's like, you know, you make the stakes really high, like losing your ship is like super a pain, or like getting it back is hard, or it costs too much, or whatever. But I feel like for the experience, that there needs to be some consequences for that.
I think that your ship does need to then be like a valuable commodity.
Yeah. Now,
at some point.
With that, I don't know how then they keep people who are super good at the game just to go prey on the new people. Like, I don't know how you fix that aspect of it.
So I think that they're going to limit the number of people that are in each instance, was my understanding. So I was reading some of like the post-beta stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're trying to make the map big enough so that, yes, you can encounter other players, but it won't be a chronic thing. Like an equivalent that somebody made was the Dark Zone for the Division. Mm-hmm. Where the Division's Dark Zone, like you see NPCs and real players, but it's relatively small, so you tend to see a lot of real players. And it was supposed to be this world where it was kind of that standoff, like, are they going to help us? Are they going to hurt us?
Yeah.
Help us? Are they going to hurt us? And it just turns into like, oh, yeah,
they're just going to hurt us.
Like, oh, no, they're just going to beat up on us.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that maybe the maps are big enough and that it's not just crazily populated, so that you could have some of those moments and you can see them from far enough away of like, oh, well, we need to go north, and there's like two ships that are blowing each other apart up there.
Yeah.
Let's not go north. Let's go south.
Or like, even if it's just like the people who end up sticking with this game, like if that's what they end up doing, right? Like if they're in it for the plundering, playing with friends, and then like they give everyone a wide enough berth unless they absolutely have to, like maybe that like completes the experience in and of itself once all the like, you know, Halo kids who just want to kill everyone fall off the game.
Right.
But yeah, I think that would improve the experience for sure. Yeah.
So Mike, I think there were definitely some raw spots in this game for sure, like the respawning and things like that. But I think it has a lot of potential. And I think I'm going to go into it as Sea of Thieves is going to be that game that we play at the end of the night. So I normally play with Scott and a couple other people like Fridays and Saturday nights, and we play Destiny and Titanfall and some, you know, fast-paced first-person shooter style games. You know, not as crazy as like COD and stuff like that, but fast-paced for me. And this would be the game that, like, once I'm tired of getting teabagged by the 12-year-old that's just completely owning me, then like, oh, let's just go and sail around in our boat for a little bit. Maybe pick up a couple treasure chests. I want to get a new coat for my dude. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm hoping it's that game.
I can definitely see that. I definitely, like, I'm still, at least, I'm going to keep up with the release and kind of read reviews and stuff and see how you guys are liking it. But, like, they need to, like, definitely smooth some things out for me. I also, just side note on this, you know, this is one of those games that everything in the game world becomes very analog. Like, you have to go pick things up physically. You have to go walk over to the map to see the map. To go to a different vendor, you have to literally like walk over there and talk to them. That gets very annoying sometimes. Like, I get why games do that, and it's like this like more immersive thing, but like when you basically take a menu and spread it out around this whole island and then make me hoof it between different menu options, it gets old real quick. and that's just a personal pet peeve in games. But yeah, this game made me think about that a lot, of just like, this entire island should just be a menu. Like, I don't need to be in this island.
You, game developer, will not take away Josh's waypoints, fast travel. You will put them back in.
So yeah, speaking of taking away waypoints of fast travel, Horizon, very briefly playing through the beginning of Horizon, and then realizing that you have to pay for fast travel is a real bummer. I'm assuming the game is balanced around that concept and it's not actually that big of a deal, but the idea of like, you can fast travel if you want to pay for it is just really weird to me.
Like in-game currency, not like real currency.
Yeah, there's like these like
In-game
token
currency.
things basically that you can expend. But anyway, just a thought of that.
Jeez,
Well,
if they did that in
if
Breath of the
you-
Wild, I wouldn't go anywhere.
I won't say too much, but it does. That mechanic changes.
Okay, all right,
During
that's
the game.
that's good then. Yeah, because
There's hope.
I'm just
see.
at the very beginning and had the initial like, this is weird. Okay, cool. Speaking of Breath of the Wild, Ross, and not really speaking of Breath of the Wild at all, but speaking of Nintendo, what a segue.
Nailed it.
Let's round the show out here. I want to talk about, again, one of the things that was announced since the last episode we had, and that is Nintendo Labo. So I'm assuming you guys have both seen the Labo trailer as it came out. Yes.
I missed that entirely, but looked at different things today, and I am hearing your all's impressions on it.
All right. So Labo, again, we've talked about it on the daily Pretty Decent stuff, but it's Nintendo basically putting out a kid-focused kind of a set of toys, for lack of a better word, that are gonna all run on the Switch. So you put a cartridge in the Switch, there's software that runs there, and you augment those things with cardboard. So it comes with like directions, and it comes with the cardboard, and you put it together in some configuration, and then you slot Joy-Cons in various places, and it is a toy at that point. So like, for example, one of them is a motorcycle. So like the Joy-Cons fit in the handles of the motorcycle, and the Switch sits in the middle. And then the rest of it is all cardboard, and it can recognize when you're turning the wheel and when you're, pulling down the throttle and stuff like that, because you're moving the Joy-Cons. One of them is a little house that has little plugs on the side, and you can, press buttons and do different things and turn on faucets. One of them is a fishing pole. One of them is a robot suit. So it has like a backpack, and you have strings that attach to your arms and feet, so it can recognize when you're pulling on the levers. And first of all, I don't think Labo is for us at all. Like, it's not something that we're gonna come home on a Friday night and play Labo for hours. But from a technical standpoint, it's super, super impressive. They're utilizing the functionality of the Switch and like the gyroscopes in the Joy-Cons and stuff in a way that like I never would have imagined. Like the robot suit, for example, there are levers inside the backpack that move up and down, and they have little like white spots on them. And the Joy-Con, the one Joy-Con has a camera built into it, and it like watches the positions of the levers to feed that information back into the game, so it can tell the game like, oh, this lever went down, which means his arm went out, so we should show the character on the screen with his arm punching out. And there's a piano where the Joy-Con camera goes in the back, and it sees which key on the piano you're pressing down, because the little white spot appears, and then it feeds that information back into the Switch. Like, it's really, really fascinating, the stuff they're doing from just a technological standpoint. and the stuff that they could do, like, you know, this is a starting point, is kind of insane. Like, the initial thing I thought of was like, okay, well, like, is this just the next Rock Band? Like, can we do a larger keyboard? Can we do a guitar where I just build it out of cardboard or plastic or whatever and slot a Joy-Con in, and then it just sees my finger movements, and that's just how this works? And you know, of course, even crazier stuff from there. But yeah, I think at its core, not for us, but super fascinating is sort of where I'm landing on this stuff.
I just really enjoyed the video itself, and it was, I mean, it was a good, I don't remember even how long the whole thing was. Was it 10 minutes, 12 minutes? But I was at least halfway to 3/4 of the way through and still going, what is this? What am I watching?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, what is happening? And for Nintendo to do something so unexpected, like, you know, we expect the weird and insane idea to come from Nintendo, and for us to be like, Nintendo, this is weird and insane even for you, I think is really cool. And I the whole time I'm watching it, the memories I'm flashing back on of myself are, you know, making houses out of old refrigerator boxes, and, you know, making fake computers, and like I was definitely one of those kids who I opened the Christmas present and set the Christmas present aside and started messing around with the box. And yeah, just the, you know, what you said there at the end, Josh, about where this could go. I mean, my brain instantly said, you know, the Lego, like, I just like the as much marketing as Lego has done with movies, with games, Lego Star Wars, that whole franchise. I mean, there's something there. Lego saw that and went, yep, all right, we need a team. We're putting together a team right now. And I just think I think it's super cool that this is kid focused, and that it is with the cardboard aspect of it. Yeah, I know it's going to be spendy. Parents, I think certain groups of parents are just going to pay whatever, but I think there's going to be this. It's not this toy that has to live on the shelf because we don't want to break it or mess around with it. This isn't an action figure to be left in a box. This is cardboard that you're going to scribble all over and play with, and it's going to break, and, you know. So I'm curious about the replaceability, if there'll be some kind of, hey, we see that you bought one, you know, the replacement or whatever for it is hopefully a reduce. I hope you don't have to pay $80 for the next one.
I'm not sure what the price is, but they are doing replacement cardboard, like just the cardboard without the software. But I'm not sure how much that'll be, but that's happening, yeah.
But I think, you know, to have this thing that you can really actually play with, like a console that you can play with, that just sounds crazy. And I think it's super cool that Nintendo went there and is doing something very different.
Yeah, not play, but play with. That's the super crazy part, which makes it really hard to even just wrap your head around it. And it is only kids that are going to come at this of just like, because you know, people like us are looking at it, and I'm looking at the house, and it's like, oh, you can, like, you know, put the faucet in and then turn the faucet and it fills up. And I'm thinking about, like, objectives, like, oh, okay, so, like, maybe I could, like, fill the whole house up, or, like, you know, maybe it's some weird, like, you know, those old school games where you have, like, the ring that has to go over the pole in the water and things like that. And then I'm like, no, that's dumb. It's just a toy, right? Like, it's a fun little physicsy thing the kids are gonna do. And, like, the closest thing I think to a game that they made is maybe the mech thing, where, you know, you're tearing down houses and stuff on the screen. But yeah, at its core, it's just a thing to play with, which is this whole category of games that is kind of going to be opened up at this point. And I think doing it in cardboard makes a ton of sense because, yes, it's kids. They're going to be able to customize it and do their own thing. And then if they break it, whatever, buy new cardboard. But that really opens up a lot of possibilities to, like, it doesn't have to be cardboard. Like, they could do 3D printed stuff, or they could do, lots of different materials, whatever. They could end up doing higher end stuff for adults if anything like this comes out for that. But like, this is like a category, like you were saying, like Lego, for example, is really, really fascinating to kind of head in this direction. And crazy Nintendo to do this.
It's really interesting. I was looking at the general trailer and stuff like that, and I think like where they could go would be really neat. I've been really interested in companies that are making platforms to teach younger children coding.
Yeah,
because it's starting to become a bigger and bigger a skill set that is more widely used.
Yep.
Than just like computer programs or video games and things like that. Like, you need to know SQL if you're going to do database management, stuff like that. And it teaches like critical thinking. So things like that I've been really interested with. One, because I just went through the painstaking process of teaching myself a computer language. Not all that fun. I was like, oh, if at least I had the basics of how scripting works and stuff like that. And I think that the potential lies here for something that is like educational without you really realizing that it's educational.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you could, with the little robot that is like built on friction, you could have tell the controller to vibrate in such a way by plugging in drop in basically a Mad Lib of different code and have it vibrate in a different way to make like the arm move or whatever.
So it seems like they are definitely doing that. So built in, and they briefly showed it in the trailer, and I read an article that kind of delved into this a bit farther. There's a particular mode, and I forget what they're calling the mode right now, but it's a bit more freeform, where it's kind of what you're saying. And I don't know exactly how deep it'll go. Hopefully deep enough where you can set things like vibrate this amount or on this input vibrate. But the thing they showed in the trailer was basically like 2 boxes for like different inputs and like connecting a line, like dragging one box to the other to like kind of do like input, like feed this into here and do this. So there will be some like rudimentary level of like programming your own toy aspect to it, which I think is again, crazy, insane possibilities. That concept, yes, like you're saying, of teaching kids that critical thinking to code is one, like super important, and also like as a kid really fun. At least like stuff like that for me was really fun, and really fascinating like as an adult to play with. My wife's niece got this toy for Christmas that kind of does exactly that. It's this little robot that runs around, and it comes with this app that, it's all visual, but you're creating these flow structures just like you're coding. So it's like, okay, this is a 90-degree turn. I'm going to connect this to the drive forward 100, drive forward whatever, like 10 feet, and then I'm going to connect that to the line that says play a sound. So then I've created this little flow structure that makes the robot do something, and then later we add in branching paths where it makes decisions based on am I touching a wall, then back up, and all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
Nice.
So like toys like that are happening right now, and that's like super exciting for someone who's in the development field.
So, and just the engineering behind it was cool. Anyway, sorry, Scott.
Oh, I was just gonna say the other thing that the Lego kind of idea shot through my brain, and then the other one that happened during watching the video was the idea of, so right now we have 2 Joy-Cons on either side, but those could be replaced with anything, even some other apparatus.
Yes.
And it could even be just some very small movement, some small rotation that sent and received messages to the Switch, or some not even a controller type apparatus, but some other mechanized movement piece that could be incorporated into Labo that could send it off in a whole other direction, I think there's some potential there, that some things that they're probably already working on, and if they're not, I'm copywriting it right now.
You heard
so
it.
I'll need my royalty check whenever you're ready, Nintendo.
I think that there is a lot of opportunity with the Switch being a device you hold in your hands. You know, we've had the games that do just touchscreen, right? Like we've had a few of those out where you have to pick the Switch up and it's a game like you'd play on your phone that's just touchscreen based. I think there's a ton of opportunity in lots of different types of games to come out with the customized Joy-Con that sticks to the side, that does its own thing, or is just for this game. Like there's a game coming out on the 3DS in Japan that's based on this anime thing that is like this fishing game. So like it comes with this weird thing you slot your 3DS into that turns it into like a fishing pole. Like it has like the actual like reel on the side. And like imagine that in like a Switch game if it comes with a Joy-Con that's just like a fishing pole on one side. Like that's dumb and fun. Like I think that's just super cool. So I there's a lot of hurdles for that, and like obviously making custom hardware for your game is something that is a massive hurdle that not many companies do, but I really love the idea of that. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm encouraged. I think it was a pretty cool idea. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it next.
Yeah, and it's really
smart.
It's really exciting to see a Nintendo right now that is doing crazy innovative things. Like they're not just resting on their laurels and putting out, you know, the next Super Smash Brothers. They're like coming up with entirely crazy new ways to play, and like that's a very good place for that company to be for me. I'm very excited about that.
What Nintendo is good at, right? Like Nintendo's always a little weird.
Definitely, they're way weird. Yeah,
yeah, and it needs to stay that way. Like the Switch was really weird, and people are like, is this gonna work? And like it does, and beautifully. But I'd like that we should allow Nintendo to be weird and not just get bogged down into like, well, that worked last time, right? So it's probably the time in this console cycle that we, you know, drop that Smash Brothers, or is this time for another Mario Kart? Let's do something that nobody's ever heard of, and then have them go, what the heck?
Yeah.
And it's super smart. They're not building anything out of plastic, so it's a lot cheaper for them. They get to look sustainable, and you get to put it together yourself. Oh, you rip. Sorry, you can buy another one.
Yeah, exactly. And the putting it together is like part of the fun. It's like, you know, following a Lego kit. You know, it's the instructions all pop up on the screen and everything. Like, yeah, from top to bottom, this just seems like such an incredibly smart venture. I'm really, really excited to see it come out and to see people start playing with it, and then to also see like the next iteration of it. Like what's the next Labo kit you come out with, because it's going to be wild to see these things.
And then the cynical part of me chuckled of like, it's coming out on 420. Can't wait to watch everybody get stoned and try to put this thing together. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to those YouTube videos as well.
It's going to be great. All right, I think that's going to do it for us for today, gentlemen. So yeah, thanks everyone out there for listening. Thank you for joining me. Make sure that you are subscribed, of course, to Pretty Dece on the YouTube channel. Just search for Pretty Dece on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast as well, where you can hear this show and all of the daily episodes. Just search for Pretty Dece in your favorite podcast app. And, of course, download the Anchor app and favorite the station there as well, and you'll get the stuff right as soon as it comes out, and you can clap along there in Anchor. If you want to keep up with the show, you can like Pretty Dece on Facebook, facebook.com/Pretty Dece Show. You can follow me on Twitter, me/the show, which is at Pretty Dece Show. And finally, you can visit prettydeceshow.com. These lovely gentlemen also have things where you can follow them. So, Scott, where can the people find you at?
I'm on Twitter at Schmizmar9. That's SCHMIZMAR 9, and I'm also broadcasting over on Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/Schmizmar9.
Wonderful. And Ross, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at LITU_87, and occasionally I do Twitch, which is just LITU87. Yay bots that buy up your domain, so that's fun. So sorry about that, but yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter, sometimes on Twitch. But if you want a real Twitcheteer, please check out Schmiz. He's a lot of fun.
Definitely. the Twitcheteer. I like that as a description. All right, so we will be back again in roughly 2-ish weeks. I've got vacation coming up, which I'll be heading out on in a week. But we'll definitely get together again when I am back. And yeah, until then, have a good one, everybody. Peace.